Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Compassion Consortium Sunday service. I'm Reverend Sarah Bowen, an animal chaplain and interspecies minister. I'm joined today by co-founders Reverend William Melton and Victoria Moran. And I'd also like to give a hearty shout out to some of the members of our advisory board who are present today, and a warm welcome to all of you. We meet the fourth Sunday of every month, and we hope to see you often. I'm speaking to you today from Daniel Island, South Carolina, a land cherished by the Kuso and the Yamasee, and home to many, many beings, including, but of course not limited to, the gray wolf, the long-tailed weasel, alligator, eastern king snake, and the American goldfinch. Today, I'll offer a few opening words, and then we'll be celebrating the official clergy installation of Reverend William. He'll share a few words of reflection about his journey. We'll hear the Tenets of Agreement, a song of compassion. Reverend William will be doing an interspecies spiritual practice experience for us today. Victoria will be interviewing Gopal Patel, and we'll hear a story of compassion from Reverend Carol Saunders. Then we'll open up the chat as we do every week or every month to do blessings and prayers for our community. And then we'll have a few announcements, and we'll close with a kind of move your body song, and then go into fellowship for those of you who'd like to stick around. Please do whatever you need to during the service to stay engaged and comfortable, stretch, hydrate. If you've got some furry family members around, pets, and their attendance is welcome as well. We'll be wrapping up around 5:30 Eastern. Okay, so let's get started. I invite you to take a deep breath. Sink into the feelings of what it feels like to be in this community today. Think about the journey of how you got here and how it knows to feel that you are in a community with others, each one who has a unique story of how they arrived here today. Our stories contain a lot of similarities and many differences. And yet our journeys brought us together today to build something special, something needed, and something very, very important, a truly inclusive spiritual community. Many of us are here today because we felt a deep call to be of service to the more than human world. The ways that we do this are myriad. Some of you are clergy or animal chaplains. Some of you are wildlife rehabilitators or shelter volunteers, animal activists. You may have come here because your spiritual path is ethical veganism. Or you may be an animal lover who's just curious about the intersection of animality and religion and spirituality. You are all welcome. I'll also say that many of us who are here today have had experiences of being frustrated within our birth religion or our current spiritual community, because the community's values didn't exactly line up with how we felt about expansive compassion to all the beings on the planet, like bats and bears and bobcats. Or we may have been silenced or brushed aside when we raised concerns about the treatment of cows and chickens and tuna and salmon and pigs. We may have had people look at us with confused faces when we described using wands to liberate flies from our porches, or how we relocate mice with Tupperware from our living rooms. And although we might be frustrated, I have really great optimism. And as you've heard from the guest speakers that we've had in the last few months at our services and our book events, people in spiritual and religious leadership are speaking up about the need for compassion to all species and all habitats on the planet. As a member of the faculty at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary, I see more and more students coming in who are interested in eco-spirituality, who are interested in animal theology. And today I'm delighted to see a few of them joining us here for our service. In a moment, we will hear from the newly Reverend William, and then our tenets will be read by Debbie Philp, a second-year ministerial candidate in our program, and Ginny Makita, who will begin the One Spirit Interfaith Seminary program this fall. All three of these humans have something in common. They have long and frankly impressive histories of advocating for animals. and all three have heard a call to service, to sacred service, to help guide others on their journey. They answer this call to service knowing that becoming something called minister can be very, very messy, that religions often leave out animals, and that animal activists are often weary about religious leaders. That said, it's my firm belief that something magical happens in the intersection of these two spheres, that to be able to be always spiritual and sometimes religious and endlessly compassionate to all beings, regardless of their species, helps to do two necessary things. First, we open people's eyes gently to what is happening to other creatures that we share the planet with. And second, we help provide people spiritual tools for dealing with the existential anguish that can appear when our eyes are opened. In my birth religion, Presbyterianism, I was taught the Gospel of Luke, that Jesus came to announce the good news to those who suffer, to heal the brokenhearted, to free those who are captive, to help those that cannot see to see, and to liberate those who are oppressed. As I stretched out to become interfaith and then interspiritual, and then more and more and more and more, I found these ideas not only in the words of Jesus, but in all sorts of other religions and spiritual traditions and philosophies across the world and through wise sages. In many ways, that word minister then also needs to expand. As a noun, it means a member of the clergy, or in some countries, someone who's in a government position. But as a verb, it means to attend to the needs of others. As interspecies ministers, we attend to the needs of the widest possible circle of others. So bestowing the word reverend, as we do here today on someone, means that they have accepted a call to sacred service, that they seek reverence in the world around them, and that they pledge their life to that call and to helping others in their calls for compassionate service. So today, Reverend William, by being officially installed into this community, pledges his commitment to the Compassion Consortium, to tend to it, to nurture it, to support all of you on your journeys to live in the ideals of this community's tenets of agreement. So without any further ado, William. So today I have one single question for you. Do you commit to helping lead this community in accordance with the tenets of agreement? And if so, please answer, I do.
I do.
Reverend William, on behalf of the co-founders of the consortium, our advisory board, and all of those who are present today in this community and our guests from One Spirit, I wholeheartedly thank you. We are so very grateful for your vision here and your leadership. Victoria, if we can cue her, would you please place the stole onto William? There we go. I know she's off headset right now to do that. A symbol of William's sacred service. Now that looks good on you, William.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And now I hand the mic over to you for your reflections.
Okay, well, thank you. So I want to thank everybody for being here today at the Compassion Consortium. And I want to thank you for being here for this special day for me. And so what I thought I would do would be to briefly share how is it that I came to be here with you today at the Compassion Consortium. So I guess you could call this my journey, or as of today, you could call it the Reverend Williams journey. So by way of background, until I was 66 years old, I was a devout atheist. And I'm not sure if you can actually be a devout atheist because it sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but that's what I was. And so you're probably thinking, well, that's pretty bad, but it was actually worse because not only was I an atheist, but for over 30 years, I was a lawyer. So you're probably thinking, okay, So there's nothing worse than an atheist lawyer. But you would be wrong, because I was an atheist lawyer who plays the accordion. So you can see that I was damned for all time, times 3. So how did an accordion playing atheist lawyer end up with you at the Compassion Consortium today? Well, it was not a midlife crisis. And I know that because I had already had 2 of those, and this just felt different. Instead, I kept constantly asking the question, isn't or shouldn't compassion, empathy, ahimsa, non-cruelty, non-violence, shouldn't all of these be fundamental aspects of all religions and spiritual paths? And I became so obsessed with this question that one morning I announced to Victoria, and for those of you who don't know, I am married to Victoria. I announced to her that I was going to enroll in the One Spirit Interfaith Seminary. And after she picked herself up off the floor, I did in fact enroll in the seminary. And during the 2-year program, I studied this question. I studied religions, I studied spirituality, and I learned a lot about my own self in terms of my own spirituality and morality. But most importantly, I learned that I was right. Compassion, empathy, ahimsa, non-cruelty, non-violence, the golden rule. They're all fundamental aspects of all religions and spiritual paths. Yet, 3 billion, that's billion with a B, that's a big number. 3 billion non-human animals are killed every day for what I call the 3 Fs, human food, fashion, and fun. And yet, 95% of the world's population causes harm to or takes the life of another living being every time they eat a meal, put on shoes, wear a wool sweater, drink milk, eat a pizza, or lick an ice cream cone. So may I ask the question, what is compassionate about this? To me, it seems to be the opposite of compassion. So that is why I am here with you today, because the mission of the Compassion Consortium is to do our small part to change this. So along my journey, there was some good news. I am no longer an atheist. Yay! My spirituality has evolved into equal parts Buddhist compassion, Stoic ethics, and Unitarian Universalist theology. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there who would say to me, well, hell, William, you're still a damned atheist, but I disagree. More good news, I am almost no longer a lawyer. I still have a little work to do on that. But alas, I still play the accordion. And I've just decided that that is my burden to bear until my next life. So again, I want to thank you for being here today. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Reverend Sarah. Thank you.
Reverend, you were born to be in a pulpit. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I think we need to convince Reverend William at one of the future services to play that accordion for the Song of Compassion. I'll get working on that. And you all can encourage him on your free time too with emails to Reverend William. So Reverend William is responsible for, really putting together the Tenets of Agreement for the Compassion Consortium. And so we read them at every service because they're important to us. They're, people say, what do you stand for? And this is what we stand for. So we've invited 2 folks, as I mentioned, from the One Spirit program that William attended, that I attended, that our other co-founder did, and many, many people who are around here today. And so I'm just going to introduce a little bit about them to you and then have Phil bring them up in the slides. I'll introduce both of them first. Ginny Makita is an animal rights attorney. William, another lawyer, animal rights attorney and chaplain in Michigan. For years, she has regularly officiated blessings of the animals and facilitated monthly companion animal loss grief support group. She recently was honored by the State Bar of Michigan's Animal Law Section with the Brandy Award, which was established in 2000 to recognize a person in the legal or legislative profession who has done something notable for animals during their career and that has previously been awarded to prosecutors, judges, and legislators. Apparently, it's possible to be a lawyer and an animal lover, Jenny, huh? She is delighted to be joining the class of 23 at One Spirit this fall. And Debbie is joining us today too. Debbie Philp practices and teaches yoga and shamanic Reiki, and has a deep connection to the Earth's wild beings, especially turtles. She is the founder of Dancing Turtle Rescue, a nonprofit whose mission is to save freshwater turtles by caring for injured turtles and advocating for their habitats as well. Debbie is a second-year ministerial candidate at 1 year, so perhaps we'll be calling her Rev. Debbie next year. Welcome to you both, and I will mute myself, and you all can have at the Tenets of Agreement.
First of all, I just want to congratulate Reverend William on today's installation. I am so honored to be part of the service today. Thank you. These are the first 5 tenets of agreement. We acknowledge a divine force at the heart of the universe and in all living beings. We may refer to this force as God, but it is known by many names and appears in different forms or as formless. We recognize the common moral principles inherent within all wisdom traditions. We affirm that compassion, reverence for life, and nonviolence are fundamental to religious faith and moral philosophy, and are to be extended to all sentient beings. We stand by the principles of inclusion, diversity, and equality, and hold these as essential in our human relations. We hold that non-human animals are imbued with the same essence of life and love as our human animals, and that there is moral parity between us.
We avow that humans do not own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. We endeavor to eat and live in a kind and sustainable manner, moving away from animal foods and animal-derived clothing, as well as any activities that cause harm to our fellow beings, human or otherwise. We aim to provide spiritual comfort, fellowship, and food for thought to those practicing or exploring a vegan lifestyle. We offer guidance and peer support for all those seeking a more compassionate and spiritual life. We commit to sharing these principles freely, with humility and respect, in support of non-human animals and the earth.
Every other weekend, I travel to the Tamerlane Sanctuary and Preserve in Montague, New Jersey, and I offer Reiki healing and Tellington T-Touch holistic healing to the animals who are resident there. And the meditation that I'm going to share with you right now is derived from an animal Reiki meditation that I do every morning. So let's begin. I invite you to close your eyes if you desire, and free your mind of all thoughts and distractions. Breathe deeply. If possible, make sure that your feet are connected to the ground so that you may freely receive the earth's energy. Continue to breathe deeply and relax. Purge all worries, anxieties, and fears from your mind. Place your hands in front of you and close your palms together. Feel the energy flowing from the ground into your body up through your legs. Feel it flow into your root chakra at the base of your spine. Then connect the energy into your sacral chakra below your navel. Then into your heart chakra. And finally into your brow chakra. So focus on this connected energy and feel its power growing within you. Imagine a bright, shining light within you emanating from this energy. Remember that there is a light that shines within all of us. It is the essence of our soul and our consciousness. It is our identity with God, our divine force, however this may manifest itself within our souls. Slowly spread your hands apart and imagine the light between your hands expanding and growing as you move your hands further apart ever so slowly. Feel this light flow from your connected chakras down through your arms and into your hands. You may feel a burning or tingling sensation in your fingers as the light flows into your hands. Now imagine that you're lighting up the world around you with your inner light. The light is flowing through your hands as it expands and connects with this world. Imagine that you are building a bridge of light and that you are inviting others to step onto your bridge of light. And imagine that you're making a connection with all who enter into your light and with all that exists within your world. Turn your hands upward and embrace the light that surrounds us in our oneness. Now let us proceed on our journey. You may open your eyes. We are in a green field together, filled with lush vegetation. We see trees in the distance. We can hear the sounds of nature all around us, birds, the wind blowing through the trees, the rustling of the grass. We can smell the smells of nature all around us. In the distance, we see animals walking out from the trees toward us. As they approach, we see that it is a group of cows, several adult cows accompanied by one calf. These cows are living freely with no ear tags, no brands, no other indicia of human bondage. They are free to wander wherever their senses and curiosity take them. You invite them to step onto your bridge of light and join us. The cows accept your invitation to step onto your bridge of light and walk straight toward us. They stop and stare at us, and we stare at them. There is no fear or wariness separating us. One of the cows ambles up to us, accompanied by her calf. You extend your hand in friendship and stroke her nose. I do the same with the calf. The cow moves closer and nuzzles her nose into you. She gazes directly into your eyes. You look deep into her eyes and sense her soul. You hold this gaze while you silently connect with her. You feel what she feels. She then turns and walks away from us, followed by her calf. As she rejoins the herd, she turns and looks at us one last time, as if to say, "Thank you, nice to meet you." The herd heads back into the trees, free to go anywhere they want to, as fast or slow as they want to. Now it is time to return. We will close the light that surrounds us. Slowly move your hands back together. Imagine that you are closing the light, but you are not extinguishing it. It is merely returning to your soul. Continue to move your hands closer together while closing the light. Place your palms together. Thank your divine force for this opportunity to share your light with other than human beings. When you are ready, take several deep breaths and slowly leave the field and return home. Always remember that your light continues to shine within you at all times. It is there for you. You may call upon it at any time. You may share it at any time. And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend William. Have to get used to that. Hi, everybody. I'm Victoria Moran. It's my honor to be doing the monthly Compassion Consortium interview. This service so far has already had so many ahas for me. Reverend Sarah, the video you chose was extraordinary. I guess you didn't choose it, you built it. And to hear that voice of John Lennon took me back over 40 years, and it really felt as if he was still with us on earth. And I guess in many ways he is. I also had the experience I never thought I would live to see, and that is my husband, the atheist, voluntarily said the word chakra. So wonders never cease. It is my pleasure today to be introducing our special guest, Gopal Patel. You can read his full and very impressive bio, I believe, in the link that Reverend Sarah put online. I met Gopal Patel a few years ago when he was featured in the film A Prayer for Compassion. I believe the filmmaker Thomas Jackson is with us today. Hey, Thomas. Gopal is a founder of Bhumi Global, which is an international environmental protection organization for people primarily of the Hindu faith. He has been honored for his work by Prince Philip at Buckingham Palace. He's spoken at the White House, and he speaks regularly at the UN, where he is a member of the Multi-Faith Advisory Council. And he's also a member of the advisory board here at the Compassion Consortium. Welcome, Gopal Patel.
Thank you so much, Victoria. It's a real honor and pleasure to be with you and everybody this afternoon.
Well, your reputation precedes you. I was on a little yoga call this morning and mentioned that you were going to be our speaker, and half the people on the call said, I know him, I know him. It reminded me of the movie Elf, when Santa Claus was supposed to come to the store, and the elf character was like, I know him. So I'm so glad that we get to know you today. So let's start where we always like to start, at the beginning. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, that's a story, and I'll try to condense it as quickly as I can. But essentially, I grew up in Northwest London in England. And around the age of 16, I decided to become a Hindu monk. But the condition was I had to finish my education. So I did my undergraduate degree and my master's degree. As a good Indian boy, I studied computer science. But the trade-off with my parents was that I could go to India and live as a monk for some time. So I lived as a monk in India for a year in an ashram in London. And then as I realized that living as a monk was not my calling for various reasons, a friend of mine was starting an environmental program working with faith-based organizations, and he asked me to lead that for him. And that was back in 2009. And it was going to be a 6-month internship with him. And a 6-month internship now has turned into my career. And 12 years later, I'm still doing the same work, working with not just Hindu individuals, but people of all different faiths and spiritualities and wisdom traditions right across the world, encouraging them to increase and ramp up environmental care and protection. So in a quick way, that's how I got here. It really was something that fell into my lap, but I'm very grateful for this opportunity to serve in this way.
Ah, that's beautiful. So you're in a tradition where this word ahimsa that we talk about quite a bit here, but in your tradition, it's where it started. I mean, I can't imagine what it would feel like to say, oh yeah, we invented ahimsa. So tell us about the concept, the meaning, and how you live that.
Sure. Well, I would say Hinduism, I don't think, can lay claim to saying we invented the word or the principle. We would say that it's an internal principle. It's timeless. But we can say maybe in Hinduism is where you first see it have a focus in the world traditions and religions. And it shows up as a code of conduct, a code of action. And it comes from this really beautiful understanding that we are all interconnected and interdependent. And the Sanskrit for that, we can use the word Ritta, which comes from the Rig Veda, that there's a global system, an ecosystem, so to speak, at play. And the system is finely balanced and finely tuned. And there are ways that we are asked to live to ensure that all life thrives and is healthy and is not hurt. And ahimsa is one of the focus areas that comes out of Ritta that asks us, we have no right to hurt other people. We have no claim to impede on the well-being and welfare of any other form of life, whether that's a human or an animal, an aquatic, or even a tree or a mountain. Everything that is living is sacred. And in order to respect that life, we really have to lean into this understanding that there is so much hurt, so much pain in the world. And our job is to lift up, to serve, to make things better. And ahimsa is the opposite of that. Ahimsa is the understanding that we cause harm. So we should stop that harm. We should minimize that harm as much as possible and find ways to uplift and serve others. And so that's how it shows up in my life and my understanding of where it comes from within Hinduism.
So tell us some of the other basic beliefs in addition to this idea of oneness. What do Hindus believe?
One thing that I've been really meditating on quite a lot recently as I do much more interfaith work is that the truth shows up in various ways, and that there is not a monopoly on truth, either within Hinduism or in any other faith tradition. God, the divine, the spirit, speaks to everyone in their own way and speaks throughout time with various messages through various people or prophets or personalities, according to the capacity of that community and the people in that time to understand and receive those teachings. And for me, that's really important, because in this time of polarization where everybody claims to be right or claims to have a monopoly on truth, the idea that the divine is so broad that everyone can access spirituality, everyone can access that truth in a way that works for them. I think that's one of the most beautiful aspects of Hinduism that I really lean into. And then the other one is, which I mentioned earlier, which is that we are here to serve. There's that famous song by Bob Dylan where he sings, "We have to serve somebody," whether it's the taxman or the government or whoever. We are here to serve, here to help other people, here to uplift other people. And where the greatest challenge is, and a lot of my work is on climate change and biodiversity loss, where the greatest challenge is the greatest opportunity to serve. And where the greatest opportunity to serve is the greatest opportunity to grow as an individual. And for me, again, in this time of really a breakdown of many aspects of Western life and institutions, this idea that we have to serve a greater good, serve other people to make things better, I think that's something that I'm really leaning into these days from my background and my study of Hinduism.
So with the environment being your primary focus of work in the world, is there a spirituality behind that? And why should spiritual people, or for that matter, why should all people be invested in this, and how?
Yeah, it's a good question. We can look at this environmental crisis from a technological or economic perspective. We can blame capitalism, we can blame fossil fuels, and it's right and good that we call out the kind of the overt concerns or the overt causes of climate change and species loss. But really, as we all know, at heart, the environmental crisis, whether it's climate change, biodiversity loss, deforestation, it's a spiritual crisis at its heart. It's a crisis of greed, it's a crisis of overconsumption, and ultimately it's a crisis of disconnect, where we have constructed a society and we live as individuals, not just disconnected from each other as people, not just disconnected from the animals, but disconnected from the earth herself. And I think that's why it's so important for those of us who have a spiritual practice or religious tradition, look into what our teachings, our traditions say about how we reconnect with the earth. Because if we can do that, if we can see the earth as sacred, if we can look at animals to be equals to us, not think that we have dominion or control over other forms of life, we can fundamentally reorientate Western society and the whole world by doing that. I have one of my favorite Christian jokes that my Christian friends often say is that initially God's plan was to hang out with a couple of naked vegetarians in a garden, right? So if we think about that God's plan is very, very, very simple. It's to be in harmony, in balance, and in alignment with the natural world and the seasons that come with that. And if we can lean into that, not only will the earth heal, but we will grow and we will become much more attuned to who we are in our true essence.
I love that you use the phrase the earth heal, because I think a lot of messages out there are saying to us, well, do the best you can, but come on, the game is over. How do you get up every morning and go out to do this work with that message coming from so many quarters?
Yeah, it's hard. It's overwhelming. If anyone else here is in the environmental space, the climate trauma, the burnout is real. What I like to do is think about, and this comes from the Bhagavad Gita, which is a text from within Hinduism, where really one of the fundamental teachings is do your best, do what you can. You've been given a certain set of skills, abilities, maybe a social network, whatever you have, do your best and leave the result up to the higher powers that are ultimately overseeing the world. Because if we think, part of the crisis is that we think we are the controller of the world, but actually we are servants. That's what the Bhagavad Gita teaches. So just serve, do your best, show up with the right consciousness, with the right mood, give all you can, but understand that's all you can do. We cannot control the outcome. As soon as we think we can control the outcome, we've already lost the game. So let's show up, do what we can. And by doing that, if we all do that, we can certainly steer the ship in the right direction.
So let's pretend that I just landed from another planet. I just learned that the Earth is in crisis. I intend to live here for a while. How should I live? What should I be doing every day to contribute to healing the Earth?
Sure. So it's a good question. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. They are overwhelmed with the crisis and don't know where to start. I have a very simple triple S program, the 3S program. And these are 3 different Sanskrit words, which I like to use and encourage others. So the first one is the concept of seva, which means to serve. Do something that's actually practical. Go out, plant a tree, clean up your local neighborhood, grow a garden, do something practical that actually contributes in a physical, practical way to healing the earth. It gives us agency and it also offers a small contribution. The second one is sadhana, or spiritual practice. Do something on a regular basis, ideally every day, ideally in the morning when it's most potent, to deepen our relationship with nature and Mother Earth. Many Hindus, what they will do is when they wake up in the morning, before they get out of bed, they will say a prayer to ask for forgiveness before they put their first foot on the ground. And so have a spiritual practice that connects you to the earth in some way. And finally, the third S is Sangha, which means community, which is very much what we are here today. Have a supporting, nourishing community around you that supports this kind of work as well. Because we all know it's lonely out there doing this kind of work. And oftentimes it feels like we're going across the stream or upstream. So have seva, have service, have sadhana, a spiritual practice, and have Sangha, have a supportive spiritual community. And I think if we can all do those things, they're not hard. We do them almost every day in other spheres of life. We can really see how we can become those agents of change that I think we all want to be.
That's beautiful. So, for those of us in the West who may not have looked very closely at Hinduism, can you explain to us a little bit about your particular practice, the bhakti practice, the way of devotion?
Sure. Yeah. So Hinduism is a big, messy, complex thing. It's difficult to understand from an outsider's perspective. It's hard to understand from an insider's perspective as well in many ways. But there are different paths within Hinduism. And again, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about there's a path of action, there's a path of meditation, and bhakti is the path of devotion. To live a life in such a way, as I was talking earlier, where we are living to serve others. We are living to serve God, who we understand to be Krishna or Vishnu. We are living to serve the community, society, and people and family around us. And we are living to serve the earth herself as well, and all other life and creatures. And and it speaks to what I mentioned earlier, that the ultimate goal is not to well, the ultimate goal is to always be a servant, is to always serve, is to always offer love, is to always say, what more can I do to make things better? What more can I do to please you? What more can I do to increase my love for you? And at the heart, that's what devotion, that's what bhakti is. It's a, I would say it's a methodology, it's a process to develop a deep, loving relationship with the Supreme and the world around us. And so that's the path I try to practice, is to really pray, God, how can I love you? How can I love everything you've created? How can I love everything you give me in my day-to-day life? And how can I serve you in a way of showing that appreciation and that love? So I would say that's the heart of how I understand what the tradition of bhakti means to me.
So help us see what that looks like in daily life. I always like to ask our guests when possible, what does your day look like, particularly your spiritual practice? But your whole life is spiritual practice with all your work for the environment. So tell us what time it is in the morning. We're getting up with you and we're going to follow you around.
Okay, well, it's been the pandemic, so it's been a bit rough, shall we say? But on a good day, and again, this is the truth of spiritual practice. It's never linear. There's always peaks and troughs. But when I'm having a good day and the world is going well and my consciousness is in the right place, what I like to do, and what we're encouraged to do in our community, is do meditation for up to 2 hours. And we meditate and pray on beads, much like a rosary. We use sacred wood called tulsi that some of you may be aware of, and we chant, we pray on beads like the rosary for up to 2 hours. We eat a vegetarian diet, and vegan if possible. And what we do as part of that practice is, before we eat anything, we offer gratitude, we offer thanks to God, and we ask God to bless the food we're about to eat, so that it becomes what is known as prasad, or sanctified food. And other things we're encouraged to do, that I like to try and do, is read something spiritual every day. So whether in our tradition, the main texts are the Bhagavad Gita, or there's also the Bhagavad Purana, which is an epic 18,000 verse text, I believe, or another text called the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so to kind of be reading spiritual text, spiritual knowledge to nourish us. And so broadly speaking, that's how the day goes. But as you said, it's not so much about the rituals, it's about the consciousness, and it's about how we're showing up in the world. Because there's no point doing all those things if we are, I don't want to say a lawyer because your husband is a lawyer, but there's no point doing those things if we're, working in the coal mines, or working in, extractive industries, or in companies that aren't doing good for the earth. So it's not just about what the day-to-day rituals look like and so on, but it's more about how are you showing up with the right consciousness, with the right mood, to ensure that you're the best person that you can be, and that you're uplifting other people as much as you can.
When you look at a spiritual life completely non-denominationally, just kind of across the board, tell us some names of people who are living now or who lived before, who have really fulfilled this ethic of service, kind of like your role models, like we'd say, in my next life, maybe I want to be who?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. It shows up in different ways. Like I would say that my own teacher and his teacher are role models. So my direct teacher is Radhanath Swami, who's from the US, but now is mainly based in India. And his guru was A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. I feel those two personalities are the biggest role models in my life, and have really shown me what it means to be not just someone who's committed to the spiritual path, but it also shows up in the world in a constructive, positive way to uplift people. And I think for me, those are the kind of role models that I look up to. I'm not so much into retreating to the forests to the Himalayas, to the banks of the Ganges. I'm for the kind of spirituality where you're in the mess of the world, trying to work things out and trying to help people. So I would say Radhanath Swami and Bhaktivedanta Swami, the two biggest role models. And I would say I do a lot of work at the United Nations, and there are some, I would say, some very spiritually advanced people in the religious community around the UN who are trying to change global policy on issues of climate change, on biodiversity loss, issues around children's rights and human rights and peace and security. And for me, they're my role models. I look up to them. I'm incredibly blessed to work with spiritual religious leaders who are working on policy at the UN on a day-to-day basis, who could very easily be comfortable in their monasteries or in their cathedrals or in their synagogues, but have decided to sacrifice that easy life to get involved and into the detail of policy to see how we can shift global trends and global thinking. So I think for me, on a day-to-day basis, they're my heroes, because that work is not easy. But it's so vitally important.
That is very hopeful. I love the idea that there are all these spiritual people at the UN. And thank you also for mentioning Radhanath Swami. He has several wonderful books, but I think The Journey Home is a great one to start with if you would like to meet Gopal Patel's teacher through his own words. Now, this whole thing about having a teacher, having a guru is a little bit hard for a Westerner to understand. I think if we grew up, for example, as maybe Protestants, you know, we revered Jesus, we admired Billy Graham, we didn't worship him. So it's kind of hard for us to understand the whole guru disciple thing. And I know you have a beautiful prayer in that context to share with us. And there was a special day yesterday. So if we can just close with that, help us understand guru and share with us that blessing. And thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. A guru, I mean, yeah, I understand from a Western lens, the guru can seem exotic and, you know, and strange in many ways. But I like to think of a guru as a teacher, and we all have many teachers. I have my formal guru, who is Radhanath Swami, but I also consider Emerson and Thoreau two of my gurus as well. And many people may consider the earth herself to be a guru, or the tree. We can learn so many lessons just from a tree. And so wherever we learn, wherever we get wisdom from, that is our guru in many ways. And so yesterday was an observance called Guru Purnima, where Hindus would observe and give thanks to their gurus. And I thought that would be a nice way to kind of end this little bit here. Because as I said, we all have our teachers, and it's always important to give thanks to our teachers. So I'll put the Sanskrit prayer in the chat. Some of you may have seen or heard this one before, and I'll just recite it briefly and then give the English translation. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Jakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And the translation is very simple and sweet. It says that I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual teacher opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respects unto them. Thank you.
And thank you so much for shining that torch of knowledge with us today. And may your work be blessed in every way, in every context, because you're out there saving this planet for everybody. Thank you. So this is usually the time when things would be turned over to Reverend Erica to do the compassion in action piece when we talk with someone in our community who is doing something infinitely compassionate and fantastically fabulous. I feel really fortunate to be able to continue into compassion in action with our wonderful guest, Reverend Carol Saunders. Because what we're going to talk about today is an upcoming event that is totally Reverend Carol's brainchild, but I do have the great pleasure in being able to say that I was with her in the parking lot where she came up with this. So Reverend Carol Saunders is double clergy. She is both an interfaith minister from One Spirit and a unity minister. She lives in southern Wisconsin, where she heads up the Spiritual Forum, a podcast ministry. And she is the author of The Forgotten Teachings of Charles Fillmore, one of Unity's vocally vegetarian founders way back in the 1890s. Welcome, Reverend Carol Saunders.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you. I think all great ideas start in parking lots.
I'll remember that. I'll spend more time in them. So where should we all be October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd?
Yes, and starting September 30th, the night before, Unity Village, which is outside of Kansas City. It's actually in Unity Village, Missouri, or Lee's Summit, Missouri. And it is the home of Unity. And it's a beautiful place. It is a place where prayer has been going on for over 125 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so it just really has a special charm to it. And it has beautiful walking trails and rose gardens and fountains. And it's just going to be a wonderful place for us to really plant our energy, I think, in the middle of the Midwest, which is different than where most of these kind of events happen on the coast. This gives us an opportunity to kind of meet with all sorts of different kinds of interfaith people. Whoever wants to come is welcome. Vegetarians, vegans, curious omnivores, animal rights people who are just beginners. But really the common thread is that we're all on the spiritual path and also awake to the love of animals.
So this is the first vegan spirituality forum and retreat. It was supposed to be last year, but there were some problems with last year, as we all know. So tell us what we can expect, and why is it a forum and retreat? Why did you decide to make it a retreat and not just a conference?
Yeah, I really wanted it. And by the way, this was born as an idea in a car between a conversation between Victoria and I, but I immediately got comrades, friends involved. And so Judy Carmen and also Lisa Levinson we've been brainstorming and working on this for almost 3 years. But a conference, we really wanted this to be really interactive, really collaborative, a place where people's hearts are open and they're connecting and collaborating on what we can do going forward. And we wanted to have people heard and listen and be able to speak. And so the idea of it being a place where we could gather and share while also being inspired by our speakers, and you're one of our 4 speakers, but it's more of a collaborative environment, and also a place where you can participate as much as you want with all of the workshops and the talks we have going on, and all of the programming, I should say, or you can just do whatever you want and go be on retreat. So you want to also have space. You want to have space there so that people can actually come away feeling rested, as well as inspired and educated and connected.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Unity. You say it started with vegetarians. Is it a vegetarian denomination? What's going on with that?
Well, I could go on about that for a long time, Victoria. The Fillmores, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, they're the ones who founded Unity. And in the early 1900s, they became vegetarians. And there's a great story about that. But it wasn't just something that they ate. They really taught ethical vegetarianism. And Charles Fillmore was very vocal. He had talks on this. They had a vegetarian column in the weekly magazine. They had a Unity Inn, which was the first vegetarian restaurant in Kansas City. They had a Unity food company that produced meat alternatives. They bound their Bibles that they sold in a leather alternative. And Charles actively taught that if we wanted to create a world of peace, if we wanted to express ourselves as universal love, if we wanted to ethically live, and if we wanted to be spiritually developed, that we have to leave animals off our plates and we have to stop using them entirely. He was very vocal about it. It was, I mean, it's not, today's unity dances around a lot of difficult issues because you want to make sure everyone feels good and everything. But I don't think the Fillmores really cared much about whether or not people felt good. They just really taught so clearly. And I think it really attracted a lot of people back then. I don't know if they were all vegetarian or not, but they also had a farm there and they made their own food. And when I say farm, I mean, they didn't eat animals, so it wasn't that. But they all kind of participated. It almost sounds like it was a little more communal back in those days.
Well, I grew up in Kansas City and we would go to Unity Farm, which they used to call it back when I was a kid, and get organic fruits. And I remember biting into a peach that we had just gotten from Unity Farm, and this little worm stuck his head out. And, you know, I'd only ever had poison produce before. The idea that somebody could live in my peach was just really, really shocking. So I always think of that. So when we go to this wonderful place, and oh my gosh, everybody, it is a wonderful place. It's beautiful physically and it's beautiful spiritually. So before you even get with Reverend Carol Saunders and Judy Carmen and Lisa Levinson, you're going to be blessed to pieces. So who else is speaking? You said I'm speaking. Thank you for telling people that. Who else do we have?
You're speaking. Will Tuttle is speaking. Dr. Melton Mills is speaking, and Lisa Kimmer is speaking. And those are the featured speakers. And then we're going to have several workshops. We're going to finalize those in the next week or so. We're just trying to figure out who's coming and how many people we have and how much money we have and all of that. But we'll have speakers there as well. I talked at length with Reverend Sarah earlier this week about the workshop that she would like to present, and it just sounds fabulous. But the focus of all of this is to inspire people to live this life that we're talking about, but to help people bring this message to their spiritual communities. Because I think it's one of the hardest things that we have. We have spiritual communities no matter what faith tradition it is, and I think most of us are challenged with bringing this message to our community, whether we're Christian or Buddhist or Jewish, whatever, all of them. We want to bring this message of compassion to all, and then we're often just met with resistance and people, really feeling like you're attacking their food choices and all these kinds of things. But we want this retreat and forum to be a place where we can learn together, share together, and come away with action plans and ideas, and also connected relationships, so we can support each other in bringing this message into our own spiritual communities.
It's so exciting. I can hardly wait. So if you have questions for Reverend Carol about this, you can put them in the chat. She's also posted where you can register for the event. And also, just really quickly, before we move on to the next thing, tell us just briefly about the Spiritual Forum so we can keep up with you.
Okay, I'll do that. But I want to say one more thing about the retreat. We're going to have fabulous vegan food.
Yay!
We've already met with the chef, and so we're very excited. He's very excited. They've got a whole new food service at Unity Village, finally.
Oh, that's right. And Kansas City itself is great for vegan food. The only Cafe Gratitude outside California.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I think it's going to be fabulous.
Spiritual Forum really quickly, and then I'm being told we need to move on.
Okay, the Spiritual Forum, it's my ministry. It's a podcast, and so you can just go to thespiritualforum.org and you can see all my podcast episodes. I have spent years with the community where we've been in dialogue. I've recently separated from my community, and I'm actually being in dialogue with people who have spiritual experiences, who are willing to share their experience of the divine. And it's intimate, deep, authentic, raw spiritual conversation.
Love it. Thank you so much, Reverend Carol. And now we're turning it back over to Reverend Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Carol. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Gopal. Wow, lots and lots to. Oh, and I see Thunder has appeared with William. We need a little stole for Thunder. I don't know. We'll have to ask Thunder about that. Oh, that might have been a yes. I'm not sure. We'll work on it. So each month at this point in our service, we bear witness to the challenges and the joys that the beings around us are facing. So the world's wisdom traditions has a lot of ways of doing this. And I have been dying to do a fire ritual, and yet I have been traveling and I cannot do one again where I am. So I keep promising one, but we have done water. We did seeds last month, and today we're going to do air. So to start, I'm going to ask Phil to open the chat room so that everyone can participate. And I'm going to ask you all to take a breath. So many of our practices in all traditions start with the breath. Reflect on how this process of breathing air that we do over 8 million times a year, about 900 times an hour, happens automatically for humans. Take another breath. We do it without thinking about it, don't we? Most of the time, unless we catch ourselves not breathing, or we're exerting something heavy, or we're in our yoga or meditation practice. Take a moment just to feel the air in your body. And let's recognize also that sometimes beings have difficulty processing air, or the bodies of those we love might have injuries, might have disease, might be in turmoil, might be in suffering in some way. And we're going to take some time to witness that. And at some point in our lives, each one of us will stop breathing. Our lives will go into the whatever is next. Breath is so important. Air, so important. And so we start today with prayers for those in need of healing, or those who have moved on to the what's next. I invite you to insert the names of any humans or other than humans in the chat for people, beings, habitats that need healing. And Phil has opened the chat. You can just enter them right in there. And I ask everyone to witness those names, to breathe deeply. And I'm going to include this month, each month I include or I highlight something in addition to the names, in addition to Seymour, in addition to Bernie. I'm going to highlight all the life in the oceans who are experiencing increased danger for commercial fishing, who are caught to be exploited in aquariums, or as William says, for fun, other human entertainment. The dugong, the marine otter, the red king crab, the stingray, the shark, the clownfish, mackerel, grouper, the scarlet frogfish, and especially the last 10 known vaquitas, porpoises. After our prayer, I'll put a link in the chat from In Defense of Animals for those of you who'd like to help. The last 10 known vaquita porpoises. Chalupa the cat, everyone in the Bronx Zoo, for Gerald, for Terry, for Walter, for Luca, for all of these names that are in the chat, all of these names. Everyone take a deep breath as we witness this. Breathe these prayers in and out of your body. May these beings and all the beings in the chat and on our minds have a most auspicious healing or next lifetime. May they be happy, peaceful, and at ease. Thank you all. For Nucci, for Poppy, who recently passed. May they have a sacred send-off. Oh, and for Bruce Banner, Didn't know that. And the little painted turtle who did not live long enough to have a name. All the injured turtles in need of healing. Take another deep breath with me. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the air around you. And we end our blessings and prayers every month with joys as well. And so I ask you, as we transition to gratitude for the lives, gratitude for flourishing, for thriving, any moments of delight from the more than human world. And I have two I'm going to highlight. Binks the cat, who survived the Florida condo collapse and was reunited with his family. Grateful for Binks. And to Megan Burrow in Brisbane, Australia, who did microsurgery on a tiny 2-centimeter long injured tree frog this month. The tree frog had been on a bunch of bamboo that was headed for koala stomachs. She rescued it, did surgery for a hole in the side that had exposed its lung. Oh, did we just catch me saying it? His or her lung. All of these names, all of these folks, everyone. Take another deep breath, breathe these prayers in and out of your body. We offer blessings for all beings. We offer joy to all beings. Those who we've witnessed here. Oh, and Lisa put a link in for everyone. Respect the Fish Day, August 1st. And Phil, if you could bring up our closing of our prayer. I invite us all to speak from our own homes. If you would join me in these words. May all creatures everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of our life contribute to this happiness and freedom for all. May it be so. Amen. So mote it be. And William, over to you.
Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We hope you'll join us next month for our Sunday service on August 22nd with guest Rabbi Dr. Shmuley Yanklowitz as we prepare for the celebration of the High Holy Days. And then on August 15th, we will have our next Compassionate Book and Film Talk with author Richard Schwartz and film producer Lionel Friedberg. And we will be focusing on the Jewish veg film, A Sacred Duty, and on Richard's new book, Vegan Revolution, Saving Our World, Revitalizing Judaism. So we hope you can join us. And if you enjoyed the service today and would like to support our future programming and events, we encourage you to donate at the link posted in the chat box. Thank you very much.
All right, I just put a whole bunch of links in that chat. So if you want to swipe up and copy them, paste them, toss them somewhere so that you can register for all of these events. And we really do urge you, if you like this programming, to help us pay the operating expenses. I think we've gotten used to a lot of these days. And I think remembering the work that goes behind those events and the things that happen, if something's meaningful to you, not only here, but in general, if something's meaningful to you, chip in, help contribute this work. So today we officially installed Reverend William, and we heard stories of sacred service from Gopal and Carol. And yet there were other stories we didn't hear. We didn't hear all of your stories. How do you minister as a verb? What are you called to do? Who do you serve? Thank you, Victoria Siding. And we are looking forward to chatting with you all and hearing your stories of sacred service. Thank you, Gopal. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Ginny and Debbie. We hope to see you next month. Thank you, everyone.